All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to Apollo's Nonprofit Bites and Insights. These are our webinar series where we invite experts and speakers from all different industries to come share their expertise with us. I'm sorry if my voice is a bit muffled or might get some feedback. I am in a public space, but luckily you're here to hear the speakers. So I'm going to just really quickly run through our housekeeping as well as our intro, and I will go ahead and turn it over to our speakers. So this series is around easy and affordable cybersecurity strategies specifically for nonprofits. This is a two-part series. Today we have Jim and Mikayla from WorkSmart who's going to give us a general current overview of the cybersecurity landscape, as well as provide some tips and tricks. Next week, we will have a speaker that will dive deeper into around Microsoft 365 and space. So before I turn it over to Jim and Mikayla, a few housekeeping details. We are recording this webinar. It will be uploaded to our website as well as our YouTube channel. But all of you who are attending will receive a follow-up email from me that will give you the direct link to the recording as well as a slide deck and other resources we might talk about today. Q&A box and chat box are available for you to use to drop in your questions, make comments. Please feel free to use that at any time throughout this presentation. Really quickly, just for those of you who may be new to Aparo, so what we do is we help other nonprofits with their technology business process challenges. So we offer a range of services to make sure that we provide your nonprofit with the support that you need. So this might include coaching, it might include getting guidance on resources and solutions in your area, connected to vendors. It might also look like a team training or a solutions project. So making sure that we help you find a solution that is tailored specifically to what you want. Best way to learn more about what we do is to go to our website at apollo.org. That will also be the space for if and when you decide you want to access our services. There is a request form for you to fill out. As soon as you fill that out, someone will get in touch with you, meet with you, and make sure that you get connected to the correct service. Other ways to stay connected with us if you haven't already is to subscribe to our email list. You can also email me for any questions or any reach outs. I will be happy to help you with that. And then lastly, if you like what we do, please consider writing a short paper. All right, that is it for me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go ahead and turn it over to Mikayla and Jim.
I just realized I was muted. Let me share. Let's see. Let me move it here so you guys can see. Okay. Does that work?
That looks good, Mikayla.
Okay, I'm gonna actually slide it to the left a little so I don't block the zoom out completely here. Well, thank you all for jumping on here. We are excited to run through cybersecurity with you all. We have a few different best practices we're going to share that work for businesses of any size and any industry. So with that being said, let's kick it off. We'll start by introducing ourselves. Obviously, my name is Mikayla. I work here on our client success team. And so I help keep our clients happy and healthy and make sure that they are getting the support and service that they need. And Jim, if you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll kick us off.
Sure. Everybody, thanks for being here. My name is Jim Rappl, and I work on the client growth team at WorkSmart. I've been doing IT-related things for 30 years, and I've been everything from the heads down tech guy to the IT director, and now I help our business clients come on board with WorkSmart, and I help with strategy. And I also sit on the board of a local nonprofit here in the Raleigh area. And I've been a business owner, so I have a vast array of experience that I think is very helpful to the majority of our clients, and specifically the nonprofit clients that we deal with. And of WorkSmart's client makeup, I'm not sure, it's somewhere between 20 and 25% of our clients right now are nonprofits. So we certainly have some experience working with folks like yourselves.
For sure. And we have our contact information here, and I'll share we'll share the slides out after. So if you have questions or want to reach out to us for anything, feel free to send us an email or give us a call. And we want this discussion to be super casual and as helpful for you as possible. So please, as mentioned, jump in and ask questions whenever, even if we're not necessarily addressing something you want to talk about. So let's jump right into it. I'm sure you all hear cybersecurity as a buzzword all the time, but it is an important one to consider, as just like with everything else in technology, it's constantly evolving and becoming more and more sophisticated as cyber criminals are getting smarter every day. So meaning that as business leaders, we have to do the same when it comes to our cyber resilience and meet them where they are. So today we'll take a look back over what's happened over the last year in terms of cybersecurity, some of the expectations we've already seen throughout 2023, and as well as continuing to come through. And then really talk about some of the tools and strategies that help you build up that cyber resilience, regardless of where you are in the cybersecurity strategy or process right now. And then we'll wrap it up and take any questions. And yeah, let's jump right into it. So like I said, we'll start by taking a quick look back at what's happened over the last year or so, and some recent trends that we've seen. So you often hear stories of cyber attacks, in the news or in reading when it comes to really large corporations, because they always make the headlining news. But really the most popular target are small businesses. You just don't hear about them as much, but they're considered an easier target due to the lack of security posture and policy that is likely in place. Research shows here that 43% of cyber attacks in general are aimed at small businesses, and 61% of all small businesses reported at least one attack in the last year, which are obviously pretty large numbers directed solely towards small to mid-sized businesses. In 2021, 50% of nonprofits specifically reported being targeted in a cyber attack. And we'll go into a little bit of why studies show that is, and some potential gaps that can be filled. Another trend we saw over the last year was a major increase in ransom demands when cyber attacks do hit. Personal information continues to be a cyber criminal's goldmine, and it just takes the ransom higher and higher. And this number can include a lot of different things. So when, a more sophisticated attack can obviously cost your business money, but it also can cost downtime. And most organizations can't afford to take, extended, unexpected downtime or super slowed business while you're working to recover from an attack. But like I said, this ransom could include paying for the actual ransom amount to get your data back, which doesn't always work. The immediate damages to your infrastructure that you'd have to pay to recover from. It might include attorney fees, any fines you may have to pay, and not to mention the hit to your reputation and, having to go through that with your clients. And it's a not large process that can include a lot of different factors. So with that being said, Jim is going to talk through a few of the things that, like I said, we've seen happen already this year and is continuing to happen as we go on.
Yeah, so we're pretty far along into 2023, but these predictions hold true for 2024 as well. And cyber threats have continued to grow and will continue to grow. They're happening more often. They cost more. And on the subject of cost, specifically with nonprofits, and I'm actually involved with one where this happened, when there was a data breach, they lost funding from some of their groups that traditionally fund them and their donors. And that's not a place anybody wants to be. Those attacks have become a lot more sophisticated. Most of them are geared at human beings. So there are tons of automated threats that come at your organization through your website, through email and spam, but it's still the one-to-one, person-to-person where the most actual successful attacks happen. So we'll talk about that. And that's social engineering. And it can be simple things like somebody pretending to be someone else in the organization, pretending to be a vendor, pretending to be a donor, just trying to get you to do something that you think is not going to result in the problem at all, like sharing an email address or clicking a link. That's all happening. And what everyone is doing to thwart it, everyone we work with, is we have to build stronger cyber resilience. We have to build not only better systems, but train our people on how to look at things with a more critical eye, not immediately click on links, not just believe something because someone told them it, especially when it comes to money, okay? And have a strategic plan that's going to help your cybersecurity stature continue to grow, as well as respond to things when they do happen, because they are going to happen. We like to say we cannot prevent, okay, but we can protect, because it's going to happen at some point.
For sure. Like Jim said, it's not a matter of if, but when, at this point. And we do have some, there's some statistics and then also just general thoughts around why there's such an uptick in cyber criminal activity. First and foremost, they know that cybersecurity isn't always on the forefront of many businesses, especially nonprofits. 80% of organizations do not have a cybersecurity plan in general, and cyber criminals are aware of this. And so that, again, is why they target small businesses that they assume, aren't even thinking cybersecurity isn't on the radar. And so it's a very easy way to get in and in turn demand a lot of money and time to get your stuff back. We also, obviously, as everyone knows, after COVID and remote work, took over the world, we have people working from home, we have people working from various locations, and that leaves a lot more room for vulnerability. And everyone's, strategic moves to the cloud, while it's super helpful and, pays off in many ways, you also have to cover it and be secure to make it be successful for your organization. And that kind of plays into the next one about working from different networks. People are going to the local Starbucks, or they're going to wherever to get their work done, and making sure that that is being done securely, and not letting any bad actors into your system is really important. Particularly for nonprofits, obviously there's a lot of volunteers involved, and people who are kind of constantly coming in or going. You have a different group of people consistently in many situations. That just leads you to more open vulnerabilities when there's more people involved who don't get consistent, regular security training. And if the tools aren't in place to protect your organization from these guys bad actors taking advantage of these, people that just come in and out, it could put you in a really dangerous spot. And there's often people wearing multiple hats at many different organizations, which in turn can lead to, you're not as diligent, or you don't have time to sit there and analyze if something is legit or not. And so you might be more likely to accidentally step into something that could be harmful to your organization. So all that being said, we've taken a look back at, what's happening and what we expect to continue to see happen. So what do we do about it? So we have 3 steps that we recommend, like I said, for organizations of all size, all industries, to really get a good baseline cybersecurity strategy and start building up your defense against these cyber criminals. So step 1 is creating a solid cybersecurity strategy and then implementing best practices across your organization and across all of your users. There's a few relatively easy and cost-effective security tips that your entire team can participate in to help you build that strong cyber resilience. Because as Jim mentioned, end users are the #1 threat. So making sure that it's not just the business leader or just the leadership team who, takes part in this security effort. It really is a team effort and takes everyone being involved and educated to keep your organization secure. So 1, keeping your software up to date and making sure that security patches and updates are maintained. I know it's super easy when the little pop-up shows up and it's like, oh, your software needs to update. You can do it now or remind me later. It is very easy to click remind me later when you're in the middle of something. But it is really, really important to keep your software up to date. Those typically are patching an open vulnerability or fixing some sort of bug. So they're critical in making sure that your device stays protected. Also, strong password help is really important in providing your team with best practices when it comes to setting passwords, like not using the same password for every single account, not writing your password down on your desk so you don't forget it. And sometimes things like that may seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't realize how dangerous that can be, especially when, you know, multiple people are coming in and out of the office every day, and it might be different people. You just never want to potentially open yourself up. So good reminders to your team to set strong passwords can really do a lot for your cybersecurity strategy. Also, limiting access to data on a need to know basis. This is called officially the principle of least privilege. So basically means only give employees what they need access to do their work. So obviously, someone who's not doing payroll should not have access to any data dealing with payroll. So limiting access to only what they need to do their job can help protect you if someone were to hijack their account and get into it. They're not getting access to your entire system. They're only getting access to what that person was able to have access to. And then one of the biggest one is having a routine backup plan in place that not only includes backups themselves, but also frequent and regular testing to make sure that your backups are working properly and that they're actually backing up what you need it to. We've seen it happen before where clients, you know, have had backups running and they think they're good, ready to go, but they weren't testing the backups. And so when the backup was actually put to use, it turns out it wasn't backing up what they thought it was. And you by testing and making sure that you're prepared will save you for when you actually need it. There are two other tactics that take a little bit more work to implement, but they are really important for protecting your organization. Security awareness training for your team, making sure that they know what to look out for, making sure, again, that they are setting strong passwords. They're educated on what to click, what not to click, how to report things that happen. And should they run into a situation where they think they've clicked on, you know, a malicious link or engaged in an email that was with a bad actor, knowing where to go to so that they don't just close their computer and hope, you know, oh, I clicked on a link, but I shut my computer, so it's fine now. Guiding them in the right direction to make sure that you can recover from a potential bad actor getting in is really, really important too. And then penetration testing and vulnerability scanning, they both work to go into your system and basically find potential holes that a cyber criminal would find if they were to go in. So you do that on, you know, a regular cadence and make sure that you're closing all those gaps, and that way you find them and can repair them before a cyber criminal comes in and can find them. So now, Jim, if you want to touch on building a cybersecurity strategy in the NIST framework.
Sure. And I do want to comment on what Mikayla just went over, and that is none of that is one and done. I talk to folks a lot and they say, oh, could you come in and do a cybersecurity project so that we're all set? And the answer really is no, because the right approach is, sure, we can identify vulnerabilities and correct, but then each component needs to be checked on, needs to be monitored, and needs you to follow up. Employees need continual training, repetitive training throughout the year, or else they just forget it. And a few months later, something happens. They're like, oh yeah, we talked about that, I forgot. And systems need to be constantly updated and monitored, and pen tests need to happen anytime something changes. So it's important. It's not one and done, hey, we're all set. And cybersecurity, we say with our clients, is it's a team sport. It's not just us doing things. It's not just you doing things. It's all of us together. And we have to have this consistent plan. So cybersecurity strategy, you know, that leads us to that. So how do we approach things? So we adhere to the federal government's NIST standard for cybersecurity, and it's got a couple interesting components. The first one is to identify your assets. And when you think about data, I think it's really easy to quickly dismiss data and say, oh, I know where my data is. It's in NetSuite, it's in my CRM, it's in my ERP system, maybe it's in my email. But our challenge is always helping folks identify where else the data is. where else data is being taken out of one of those secure systems and stored elsewhere. So it can be in Google, it can be in the Microsoft 365 environment. It can be copies of things copied down to people's individual workstations, or worse, home systems and phones. And it's trying to identify all those devices and types of data and where they could possibly be and getting a handle on it. Then it's putting protection in place and saying, okay, we can't stop people from accessing data. They need to do their jobs. They need to share information. But how can we have some control in place? And so that consists of things like, if you do have your data in a cloud environment, are you following that provider's best practices for security? Are you making sure that, as Mikayla mentioned, you have strong passwords in place, that there is a password policy that's making you change your passwords at a certain cadence? Things that should be in place like multi-factor authentication, things called conditional access, looking where someone is actually accessing data from and determining, should we allow access from Eastern Europe, from China, places like that, or not? And it probably depends on what you're actually doing with your organization as to what those answers are. There's not one simple answer. It's looking at it and understanding how your data is accessed and putting controls in place to protect it. And then there has to be some type of monitoring. So how do you actually look and see what's going on? It's easy to monitor things like PCs. Do PCs get antivirus updates? Okay. Is DNS or web filtering in effect? That's easy. It's harder to look at the big picture of who's accessing our data and from where. There are tools with most of the cloud providers that allow you to look at some of that. And then there are third-party tools that can really encapsulate all your data and allow you to have a clear picture of who is accessing it from where it's been shared, when was the last time it was accessed. When we can get to that point with a client, they discover vulnerabilities they never imagined. They can have a file sitting out somewhere on a website or sitting in somebody's email. They thought this was gone. They thought they never had to worry about it again. And there it is, and somebody's accessing it. You know, there's our proposed budget that we would not want anyone else to see, you know, from 2 years ago. And we also identified threats and risks in, you know, in an associated page in that worksheet. And we don't want anybody to see that. And it's sitting out there in public view. And this kind of stuff happens all the time, but no one's aware of it because they're not actually monitoring where their data is and who's accessing it. And then the last piece is, because something's going to go wrong at some point, is what do we do then? Let's have a recovery plan in place. Let's make sure we're backing up data and that we can actually get it back. Having a backup is not good enough. Having carbonite on your machine is not the complete answer. Having your server backed up to the cloud is not the complete answer. How do you get it back? How long does it take? Who's able to do it? Where does all the different data reside? How do you get it all back and build that back together so you can actually conduct business? So having that cybersecurity framework in place with the ability to identify and protect and monitor and then recover is what's critical.
For sure. So that takes us into step 2, which is the combination of proactive processes as well as reactive resources, which we've touched on a little bit, but the key is to have both in place. Reactive support is obviously how it sounds. When something goes wrong, you need a team to jump in and solve the problem and get it fixed so you're back to work. It's simply like a break fix model support. And that's typically billed hourly for the services provided in those situations. Proactive support is obviously more focused on prevention and long-term strategy so that your reactive support number goes down ultimately is the goal. So your provider will go in and find and fix the issues before they become a pressing issue that turns into reactive support. And I'll pass it back to Jim to highlight a few of the key benefits of proactive support specifically.
Sure. So proactive support, it's what we built our business on, and we do it a few different ways. And what we're doing is we're trying to look at systems and processes and look for vulnerabilities and then correct them. The positive effect that has for you and your organization is multifold. One is we stop things from happening, okay, before they happen. Stop problems before they happen. That's great. And we'd love that to happen all day long. We identify a problem, stop it, end users are never affected. That's great. And a lot of the times we are able to do that, okay? But we're also, if we're got proactive process in place, we're able to identify things that need to be taken care of in the months ahead or years ahead, so you can help budget for those too. If you're making a change in your business and we're aware of it and we can talk those through, we can lay out a budget so you know, I'm not going to put something in place that's going to be vulnerable. I'm going to put it in place. I'm going to know I'm protected and I have a recovery path. This allows you to have predictable expenses, okay? Proactive work every month prevents problems. Typically, you're paying a set fee for that with a provider, whether it's us or someone else. Reactive is pay as you go. You have problems, you pay somebody to fix it. Okay, so you have predictable expenses when you're using a proactive model. It also allows you to grow your organization. If you know that when you add an end user and add a PC or add a system, exactly what it's going to cost you every month and annually to add that, you can actually budget and make plans to grow your business. If you don't know what those expenses are going to be, that's, we're all there, we're all there in certain aspects of our life, but that's tough. Those are the sleepless nights. Those are the things that make you sweat. When you know what something's going to cost, you can plan for it. You can look ahead down the road a year or more. That makes life a lot easier and makes it easier for you to run your organization successfully.
Yes. And that brings us to our last step 3. As we've kind of reiterated the whole time, we can do all these things in preparation and put all these proactive steps and processes and tools in place, but ultimately, like Jim said, we cannot completely prevent, we can only protect. And so when something does happen, we need to be prepared. And as we mentioned earlier, 43% of cyber attacks aimed at small, mid-sized businesses, only 14 of them are generally prepared to defend against cyber attacks, which leaves a large amount that are not prepared, and can ultimately lose a lot of business and time and money when trying to recover. So the first step is, like we mentioned, backups are the key here, and they have to be tested to be reliable. So you know exactly what's being backed up, where it's being backed up, how much time it will take you to recover those backups. And like Jim said, who can do that? Nowadays, cyber insurance is also a key factor to have in your cybersecurity plan and is often required for compliance purposes. So I'll pass that back to Jim as well to go into a little bit more depth on what that entails.
Yeah, if you've actually looked at your insurance policy for almost the last 10 years, there's been a cyber liability section that started with about 2 sentences and now might even be a half page or more. And the reason for that is the insurance companies are putting more and more stipulations on what it takes to actually qualify for your cyber liability coverage. So we all know what that means. Either they're going to pay you or they're not if something goes wrong. So our role with our clients is to continuously look at that and make sure that what's in place, data-wise, system-wise, people training-wise, is meeting the requirements of that cyber liability coverage. 2 different kinds of insurance to address problems there. One is called first-party insurance, and that is when you're the victim. A cyber attack is perpetrated on your organization or your people. There is some money the insurance company will pay out to help you get your reputation back, contact your donors, the folks who work for your organization, let them know what happened and correct any problems that happen. There's also third-party insurance, which is when you're at fault, you're to blame. Somebody in your organization most likely accidentally did something that resulted in damages to a donor, another organization, the people that work with your organization. There's a lot of stipulations there to actually have that coverage be in effect, right? Customers, vendors, data, whoever data could touch, whatever data might be in your database, and to actually be compliant, not just for cyber liability coverage, but often for different grants and to work with different organizations, you need to meet their levels of compliance, which are going to point back to that. We are not cyber liability experts. They exist. What we can do is help you look at what your policy says and look at basic controls and tell you, are you in good shape, and help you with those audits. You may be filling out an annual audit where you're attesting to the fact that all these things are right. We can help make sure all those things are actually right. And if they're not, we can get the right people involved, Aparo included, to help out and make sure your ducks are all in a row. So if and when something happens, you're covered.
For sure. Looping the right people in. Yeah, so to wrap up, our goal is to make your IT support your business. And that is a lot focused around cybersecurity nowadays. So the three main steps are building that cybersecurity strategy, and implementing the best practices, again, across your entire organization, not just one person being the only one responsible for your entire cybersecurity plan. And is combining proactive processes with reactive resources to make sure that you have, like Jim said, all the ducks in a row and all your bases covered there, to keep your organization secure. And then again, making sure that recoverability is there with backups and testing and cyber insurance to help you recover should something go wrong. So that is all we had for you today. Like I said, we have our contact information here. We would love to answer any questions you have. Can be specific, can be broad. Feel free to ask.
And I believe folks can raise their hand or drop it in the chat. And I don't see anything in there. While we're waiting to see if someone does want to pose a question, let me add that we talked in very general terms here today. But if you would like to dive into the specifics of your organization or specific problems that you're having, please feel free to reach out to me. I would be happy to talk with you and talk through. And if we can help, we love to. And if we can't, I'd love to help point you in the right direction.
Sure. I'm going to stop sharing so we're actually people.
We have no questions. It must have been extremely thorough, or everybody's snoozing.
Yes.
A lot of good information, definitely. While people are thinking about their questions, I have a question. So you mentioned a lot of great strategies. Do you have any recommended like free or low cost tools that people can start using to continue to support their security? So maybe like a security awareness type tool, backup tools, anything that you might recommend?
So interestingly, if folks are running a Windows system, Windows has a built-in feature that reports to you on security, and you've probably seen it pop up. And, Windows comes with a firewall and with some basic antivirus software, and it will also tell you if updates are not being applied. So that's a really good first step. If there's a problem there, that's the place to address it right away, right? Protect the endpoint. Then there are more advanced tools that can be added on. Typically, those do cost money. We certainly recommend them. There's a reason they cost money. Okay, they come with advanced features to actually monitor and then automated ways to fix things. So not just set it once and protect things, but it's an ongoing threat prevention mechanism. Also, in the cloud environments you're working in, Google and in Microsoft, and if you're using a system like Salesforce or HubSpot or something, they also have their own internal security meters. And they will tell you things like, hey, you really should have a multi-factor or two-factor authentication set up. You really should be changing your password on this cadence. We noticed that these accounts haven't been used in a certain period of time. It's paying attention to those things. There's a lot of those things already built in. If you want to Google and go find many different tools, you're going to find a lot of tools that are the loss leader for a lot of different antivirus companies and cybersecurity companies, right? Hey, put in our freebie model, and we're going to tell you everything that's wrong, and then to fix it, pay us. That's okay, but there's already stuff there that's built in. Cloud environments and Windows and on the Mac. A Mac's going to tell you if it's not secure. So I would recommend you look at those. I would also recommend that if you're working with other vendors and you're sharing data, okay, that you guys are talking about how that data is being secured. And if they have recommendations for controls, okay, if you need to be PCI compliant and those things, okay, how are they verifying? How are they checking those things? get on board, get on the same page with those things, and you'll probably identify vulnerabilities that are going to require some intervention, either from somebody you designate on your team to handle or somebody you bring in from outside to handle. But it's the conversation with people that you're actually sharing data with about what they're doing to protect it that will open up areas for you to look into.
We did have a question come in, Jim. How do nonprofits find good tools to do ongoing phishing training? It's the most important, lowest hanging fruit thing, right?
Mhm.
Indeed.
So we actually provide security awareness training for our clients. Okay, and we do it through a company called Infima that it runs in the background. There is a charge for it. I'll tell you, it's nominal. It's a very low charge to do security awareness training. And I would recommend that you go with a low cost paid program like that. It's at least consistent. What we love about the tool we use is once you add someone into the domain, into the directory services, they're automatically enrolled in the training. So there's no way to miss a new employee, okay, and give them training. And some of the other systems do have that ability to miss someone, which is then, it's like, locking the front door and leaving the back windows open. So it just doesn't make any sense. If you're looking for a way to leverage where you're already spending money, payroll services, if you're using an outside payroll service, may offer security awareness training as a freebie add-on. Your insurance carrier may also offer it, or they may have a way to resell it on the cheap and have specific rates for nonprofits as well. So again, it's not very expensive to begin with, but payroll services, I know, use it as just a value add. And then your insurance carrier may do it themselves or have somebody they recommend.
And I typed the tool we use, so you guys can use that as a reference if you need to. Any other questions?
Jim, I know you mentioned a little bit of the cost and advanced features and all of that, and we mentioned this in our initial calls around budgeting. So for nonprofits that are looking to include an IT budget into their strategic plans, how much should they be budgeting?
Well, there's a loaded question, right?
Yeah.
And so, as I mentioned before, when we want to start talking about cybersecurity, we want to identify where all the data is and all the devices that the data is on. It's a similar tack with the IT budget, because the IT budget is not just what you've been paying somebody to fix your IT problems, right? It's that. It's your cost for, everybody understands it's their cost for hardware, right? It's your cloud services costs. It's your ISP cost. You have your connection to the internet. You need to allocate some costs for the equipment that's protecting you there, firewalls, routers. If you're leasing them, great. If you're not, you need to have those in your budget on probably a 3-year cycle. Okay. It's wireless access points. People buy wireless access points, and think we're covered. And then 3.5, 4 years later, we need to buy them again. We didn't think about that. Well, okay, it's going through all those iterations of hardware costs. When will it need to be replaced if it's not being purchased as a service? Software costs, when will it need to be upgraded? All the subscriptions we have, when do they renew? A lot of the cloud providers build in neat little provisions like your cost will go up 15% a year. It's building those types of things into your plan too. And when people on your team, and we see this all the time and we do it too, marketing wants to use this tool, right? Accounting wants to use this tool and they just go do it. It's free. It's not free. Okay, you may use it for free. The cost of using it is not free. So how do we build that into the plan? And how do we put some controls in place on those things too, and have some type of vetting of what people are using? Because we joke, free tools cost a lot more money than paid tools do in the long run usually. So let's be upfront about it. Let's talk about it. Let's map that all out and have a plan that everybody in the organization understands as it relates to the budget.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Cool. Well,
Looks like we're
I'll
gonna give you some time back, before. Sorry?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'll share, or one of us will share the slide deck, so you guys have our contact information and everything we talked about today. So please feel free, even if it's just a very simple, direct question, or if you want to talk more long-term strategy, please feel free to reach out to us. We would be more than happy to help. And like Jim said, if we can't, we'll guide you in the right direction.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Jim and Kayla, for taking the time for this. I will be sending that follow-up email. A survey is also going to pop up, if you guys can complete that. Other than that, thank you all for attending, and see you next time.
Thanks for having Aparo do this. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Have a great Thursday, everyone.